Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today, inshallah, we're going to reflect on a story that is referred to in Surah al-Buruj, but not necessarily explained. Through a hadith, our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, alayhi salatu wasalam, tells us the story of the mother and her baby. This mother was one of the believers in this kingdom in which the tyrannical king was throwing all the believers into this huge pit of fire. And he would call the believers to the fire and he would ask them, will you give up your belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Will you give up your belief in Al-Aziz Al-Hamid? Will you give up your belief in Al-Majid? And they would say no. And if they said no, they were thrown into the fire. If they agreed to keep their belief hidden and said what he wanted them to say, then they would be saved. So this mother with her baby in her arms was seeing this happen in front of her. And then it was her turn. And she was asked, will you give up your belief in the one God? And for a moment, she hesitated. And we know from our Prophet Muhammad's hadith that her baby in her arms, like Prophet Isa, spoke as a baby. And he said to her, O my mother, be steadfast, for you are truly on the truth. And that statement from her baby gave her that strength and that courage to say, I will not give up my belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so both her and her baby were thrown in the fire. As mothers, and I hope many of you listening to me today are mothers, there's so much that we can reflect on and think about when we put ourselves in the shoes of this mother. What must she have been feeling? What must she have been thinking? And that support and that strength that her baby gave her. And we learn from her many things. We learn, first of all, that true believers sometimes hesitate. They sometimes feel fear. And they need something or somebody around them to give them that push, to give them that energy, to give them that courage to stay the path. We also learn from her that sometimes that statement or that person or that sign that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually comes from the most unexpected of places. Would she have expected that her baby speak to her? Maybe the person that was behind her would have said to her, don't doubt yourself, you are on the truth. Or maybe she would have sought courage from those who had went before her. But her courage, her sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came from the most unexpected place, from her baby. And so we learn from this believer that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has our back, that He's there for us. And that sometimes when He knows that we are hesitant, scared, doubtful, anxious, He sends us a sign from Him, a sign from where we might not expect. And so the next thing that we reflect on is to be mindful of those things. When you're going through a time in which you are scared or worried, be mindful of what's going on around you. Be mindful of the person that Allah may send your way that's going to give you that pat on the back, that's going to encourage you, that's going to tell you, don't worry, stay steadfast. Or the sign that's going to come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that's going to give you that courage and that sabat, that steadfastness. We also learn from this mother that sometimes we make decisions that at that moment seem to be the scariest decisions and the least likely, you're throwing yourselves toward in harm's way. But sometimes you have to reflect, what is my intention? Why am I making this decision? Is this sincerely for Allah's pleasure? Am I sure that I am on Allah's path? And if I am, maybe this path that I'm taking, this decision that I'm taking for me and my family is the right one. And then Allah promises us in the Quran, Inna ma'al usri yusra. Verily, after all difficulty and hardship, there is ease. So when you take that step towards what you think is difficult, but that you know is the truth, is the right thing, is what will please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that will make Allah happy with you, then all of a sudden you will find that ease, inshallah, that comes after it. That sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has accepted from you, the step that you have taken. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also teaches us through this mother that pain is short-lived. We know that Allah promised her in Surah al-Buruj that she has Jannah, that her baby has Jannah, that she has eternal bliss, that these believers who stood fast and who stood strong in front of the face of this tyrant were promised something greater. And so we learn from her that short-term pain for long-term gain, that the tests of this world and the challenges of this world are for something greater and better that will last forever. These are similar stories or similar lessons that we learn from other mothers in the Quran. This story reminds me of the mother of Musa. She was scared for her baby Musa. She knew that the tyrant Pharaoh was looking for the Bani Israel, the children of Israel, to kill the baby boys. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave her a sign that she should nurse him, comfort him, and then put him in the basket and put him in the river. Imagine that feeling that she had, that she was putting this little baby in a basket in the river, not knowing where the outcome will be. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides Musa's sister to him, and his mother is able to be reunited with him. Through these stories of mothers and children, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us so much and gives us so much strength, so much steadfastness as mothers and as parents as we face the challenges in this world. One other ayah I want to leave you with, it's actually an ayah from Surah Al-Talaq, the very beginning of Surah Al-Talaq, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Whoever has taqwa of Allah, whoever is always conscious of Allah, always mindful of Allah, Allah will find him a way out. Allah will guide him to a place that is wider, that doesn't seem as constricted, that doesn't feel so challenging. The next part of the ayah says, وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ. And Allah will send him rizq, He'll send him bounty, He'll send him all that he needs, he or she, the believer, from حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ, from a place that he could never have imagined or never assumed that the bounty and the goodness or the needs that this believer has would come from that source. And so Allah says that whoever has taqwa of Allah, is mindful of Allah, is aware of Allah, does all that pleases Allah, Allah will find him a way out. Allah will bless him with what he needs from a place that he would never have imagined. And lastly, Allah says in the ayah, وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. And whoever puts his full trust in Allah, then Allah is enough for him. Put your full trust in Allah. When you are hesitant, when you are making a decision, think, why am I doing it? For who am I doing this? Whose pleasure am I seeking? Am I sincere? There's is ikhlas for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then know that, put your trust in Allah, take that step. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be enough for you and will guide you and will be with you all the way and support you in your decisions and find you a way out. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always make us of those who have taqwa, who trust in Him, and who search for the bounty and the blessing and the rizq only from Him. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.